Hello, and welcome to Champion Your Culture, the podcast where we dive deep into the heart of leadership and organizational culture. I'm Ryan McCarty.
And I'm George Rogers. Together, we're here to guide you on a journey of personal and professional growth. Every week, we bring you insights, stories, and strategies to help you and your company thrive in today's dynamic world.
So whether you're leading a team, running a business, or just eager to make a positive impact, you are in the right place. Let's jump right into today's show and champion a culture of purpose and passion. Welcome to Champion Your Culture. What's up, George? Happy Monday.
What's up? What's up? I just doing so. I'm throwing in the chat right now. I want people to make sure this morning that they join in on this conversation we're going to have, because we're going to have a pretty interesting conversation. That a lot of things that I've always wanted to say. Some of those candid conversations, HR Unplugged combos.
What employees are wanting to ask.
What's really on your mind? But if I say the wrong thing to the HR person, I don't know how confidential it really is going to be.
Yeah.
But there's some conversations that's been stirring up in my personal messages, and this is be anonymous, so I'm not tagging any names to some of these questions. But that kind of conversation.
We're talking about you, Bill.
Yeah, no, Bill Nye. But so I'm excited about the conversation.
Yeah.
But, before we get into all that, we want to welcome everybody today with joining us here on Champion Your Culture, the podcast powered by Culture of Good. And so we're excited to be here back again on another Monday.
I did want to say welcome all of our new listeners. Every week we're always excited because we go live every week. Mm-hmm. For our new listeners out there, make sure that you subscribe, rate us, follow us. This conversation keeps growing week over week, and some weeks we have a guest, and we've had some guests over the last few weeks that have been really good. We've got some really cool combos coming up over the next few weeks. And so I just wanted to say welcome all the new listeners, new watchers.
Thank you for joining us. That's awesome. Give yourself a golf clap, and appreciate that. But how have you been? I know this is about to become a busy time for you and I both. But you got a fun trip coming up. I've never been. I'm actually going to go in August.
Leaving for Boston tomorrow. So youngest daughter Brenna works out there at Converse, and so we're going to I'm going to go and visit her. So it's awesome. Little daddy-daughter.
That's cool, man.
Trip.
Man.
That's
a good opportunity
to visit her.
She's still doing great things. She just was nominated here in Indianapolis, right?
I'm actually.
I feel like your family is just a walking award show. There's like a walking award.
Like that sometimes, It's really it's interesting because I think when you're younger, the idea of being able to receive an award seems so significant. And now as a dad, anytime Bria or Brenna are awarded or they achieve anything, I feel like that gives me a better feeling than any time I ever got anything. You know what I'm saying? Just to see them be recognized for their work and their craft and their hard work. And, because you don't get to see all the behind the scenes stuff of what it really takes. The restless nights, the stress, the mistakes. So you have to start all over and really go to the grind, especially when you're dealing with art and creativity. One bad move can make the restart a whole different thing. And that's what it's been like. So, but thanks for bringing that up. I'm liking this conversation, but I'm looking just past you to these geese that are right outside of our studio. So for those, you can't see it, but we just found George figured out that
right outside of our studio,
geese outside of our studio that have created a nest.
Right. So one in our pots.
We'll give updates weekly to see if there's any, I guess. Do geese will lay eggs first? Right?
They'll lay eggs. So I think she's pretty much either has laid or she has the nesting there, and
she's starting to nest.
So she's either had laid the eggs, and that's why she's sitting on that, or she's preparing for that moment. So maybe next week what we can do is have another camera on them, cool. And so we'll pop them up in the beginning, or so y'all can meet Duck and Donald and Daisy out here. What's weird though, in my peripheral vision just a while ago, I went to reach for my bag and all the stuff against the window over here, and Papa Bear came around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
Donald came around the corner and he's pecked the glass.
He was not happy.
And the wings came up. And now I'm scared to go out the door here to my car. I'm literally going to walk all the way around, close to the highway.
No, to get there. Well, I'm looking out the window and he's standing next to your car. He's standing next
to my car, like, oh, this is his car. He's also the one that almost hit me in the parking lot. So, yeah, some stuff is about to go down, ladies and gentlemen. You could be visiting me. It'll be podcast live next week. Coming to you live at Eskenazi
from a goose.
Yeah. But speaking of awards, we talked about the awards of your family.
Yeah.
Culture of
Good Awards. So this is something that we've not even talked about, but we're launching this year the inaugural Culture of Good Awards, where we this year have selected companies that we've worked with over the last few years that have built a culture of good or doing good in their community. We want to recognize companies that are doing good work, that have a heart for more than just profit, that have intentionally built a culture that prioritizes the giving back and doing good within their local community. So where we do business, we do good.
Yeah.
We're not only here to make a paycheck, we're here to make a difference.
Yeah.
And so we're going to start recognizing those companies this year, which is really exciting. The actual announcements won't come out till July, but the selection process is happening and applications are coming in right now. If you are listening and you are interested in potentially throwing your name in the hat this year, we're not putting this out to social media, but if you're a listener on the podcast, a distinct listener, you can go on cultureofgood.com today, and you've got a week or so to fill out the application. If your company cares about the community and you prioritize that work and you're doing good work in your neighborhood for whatever the cause is that your company is making an impact, we want to recognize you. So go on cultureofgood.com. You still have some time to apply. I'm glad you brought that up. So year over year, we want this to become the award that companies covet, because more and more we want to see, I think this is going to be a necessity as things are moving toward automation and augmentation and AI, that we are intentionally rehumanizing the work experience and prioritizing a human-centric organization.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's going to take leadership, and it's going to take true innovation to be able to, in a sense, find what it is that gives us a heartbeat and a soul within our companies and be able to do something about that. So the awards is all about what companies are doing good in their community and how can we really emphasize business as a force for good, as you can see on the shirt.
That's the important part. When I think of culture good, and when people ask, what is it that you do? There's a lot of different things that we provide, services of that nature, but really the heartbeat is really becoming a business as a force for good, and seeing businesses give back, and not just give, but show up in their communities. And so that's the important piece. A lot of people can give. The check is so easy to write. But giving your greatest ROI, your time that you cannot give back, and being there and showing up for your community in the way that it sees fit is so powerful. And so that's important to us. And so, I wanted to just bring that up, Culture of Good Awards. I'm excited about it. I know our team here, we have a great marketing team that's put a lot of time and effort behind the scenes with you and our team at Culture Good. And so we appreciate all those. I want to just shout them out for doing great work. And there's too many of them, so I'm not going to name one. The
whole team
at Round Room that's been incredible behind the scenes. And so I'm excited about what is to come, and I'm excited about being able to make those announcements in July. Maybe bringing some of those award winners onto our podcast as well. And so exciting time, my friend.
Well, I think it was like, we started thinking about, a lot of times when you're in business, you don't intend to, but you end up tooting your own horn in a sense, right? Because it's your business. You need people to know what you're doing, what your services are, what you provide. As you mentioned before, we have keynotes and workshops and all this stuff. And so we've been telling our story for the last 10 years and saying, hey, if you want to grow this kind of culture within your business, let's talk. Because we can help you do that. And certainly that's really what we do. But we took a step back and realized, there's so many great companies doing good work. And, when we think about that, what we want to do is we want to tell other people's stories. We want to be able to share stories of other businesses doing good. It's not a movement because Culture Good's doing it.
Yeah.
It's not a movement because one company cares. It's a movement because the companies throughout communities care. I think about what we're about to go do in Marion, Indiana with the manufacturing sector. We have over 10 companies getting together to have a conversation, a candid conversation around what does it look like to build a culture of good within those organizations across the community.
Yeah.
And what kind of impact can we make if it's a movement and it's not just another business idea or program, you know? That's why this stuff doesn't just fit in a book or a program. This is something that is culture. And when we talk about culture, we're talking about far more than just like, yeah, let's kick off this initiative or this program, So
yeah, exactly. Let's get into these conversations a little bit deeper as we get into this discussion of our topic today, candid conversations, right? I think about HR Unplugged, and if I was to have an opportunity to sit down with some of our HR team, and I've appreciate everybody that did send in some comments, and some of these are going to be shared today. We're going to try to get through at least maybe 5 or so if we can, and just kind of discuss those. If more come up, then we'll do.
Yeah.
But just spontaneous, without thinking about our list and our preparation. What are some of the things when you were growing up and you were a worker or employee that really crossed your mind?
Within HR?
Just things that even with your manager that you probably couldn't say, but you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, for me, I always, and I think, employees in general feel this way as well, as whose side is HR on?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that conversation is like, how much can I actually trust when I go to talk to HR? I mean, this is the conversation today. Like, what are people wanting to ask HR? Right. So we've got that list and we'll go into that. But that's the question, is like the reason that a lot of times HR isn't asked some of these questions is because we don't know whether HR is on the side of those who write their check. I was talking to a young person that recently over the last week, and they're like, that whole conversation around like, hey, HR is on the side of whoever's writing their paycheck. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, I told them, like, okay, it's good to go to HR, and certainly we should have the trust of HR, but also we have to understand, I think employees don't fully know whether they can trust HR because they've seen that backfire.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that HR professionals get into, right? Is because a lot of times their hands are tied,
right,
and not able to fully lead in the way that they want to lead. I mean, we talk to HR conferences at conferences all the time, and SHRM, and we're getting together with HR groups, and the frustration that they have. We're like, we want to bring this type of culture of good and this care and community and people, human-centric type work into our business, but it's not going to be sponsored. It's not going to be supported by leadership. And so there's this wrestling that HR professionals have, where they've got the expectations of leadership on them, but they also have the needs of the team members that they're pulling from, so they're kind of like in between, kind of stretched between the two. And I think just not knowing, I think as an employee, whether I can trust HR, whether they would have my back or not.
Yeah, that's important. So let's get into the top 5 questions.
Okay.
And then we'll just kind of give our maybe the perspective, but also what they really meant when they said this question. I kind of professionalize these up a little bit to get a little bit cleaner than how they were presented. But just some of the HR Unplugged candid questions and conversations on the workplace realities, right? So number 1, and this was a huge one. Actually, I asked a good friend of mine, Ben Eubanks, to send us in. I texted him this morning. I said, hey, what are some things? Just kind of see what he was thinking, what we were hearing from everybody else. And Ben had some interest in it, and it was very similar to this. So I've asked number 1.
Yeah.
and I want your candid opinion. So number one, the hottest one that we found and got from everybody was, professionally wise, what do you think about my manager? So an employee is asking HR, what do you feel about my manager? So employees may want to know, what HR thinks about their manager's leadership style. This could be, maybe some hesitation to ask a leader a certain question. What type of, person is this person? How they're going to respond?
Is this like before I get hired, or when is this question asked?
I think the way it was presented is during. So still, one of the things is that they may have hesitation to ask the question because they don't want to seem disrespectful or create any tension in the workplace. So they're hired, but they don't know, I don't know how Ryan is as a person. If I was to go to Ryan and say, hey, I have an issue with something, maybe your leadership style or how you specifically may voice something, right? That does not align to what HR said our 5 promises or our core values were.
Yeah.
So I got an issue with you on this. And I want to know how I can bring, in the sense, the way this was brought.
It sounds to me a little bit more like this is an issue that somebody has with their manager. Yeah. So they're bringing that, because no one cares what HR thinks about the manager. So I don't even think that's the question, is not like, what do you think about my manager? Because that's inconsequential. It doesn't really matter. I think this question is really, like you said, like the manager's micromanaging. And so I need to bring this to HR, and I don't know how to bring it to HR. So I'm gonna ask it this way. What do you think? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, hey, this is what I need from my manager. How can I best get it from them? Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Well, this goes into what you said in the beginning, right? As an employee, you don't know where HR stands.
Well, HR is best friends with managers because the HR is a manager. That's the issue.
But is there support? How do you know there's unity within the team?
Well, there never is. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, they're the ones going out after hours to the work party, and the team members not. The managers go out. So the HR has there's a different level of relationship between HR and management than HR and team members.
Gotcha.
There's always going to be. Yeah. That doesn't mean that that's right. I'm just saying, like, everything's built on relationships. So if you're my HR manager and you have a different relationship with my manager, I'm not going to you because you guys have something going on. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tricky conversation. I'm not really sure where to go with it. Yeah. I think, again, open, honest conversation, feedback, all of that. But at the end of the day, if this is on the HR professional to be able to find inroads to build trust within the workforce, because that is a glaring reality. People don't know that they can trust HR. Yeah. That's across the board. Yeah. And that's frustrating for HR. This isn't all on HR people, by the way, either. This is a frustration I know that everybody that we have in the HR world is frustrated with as well, is like, how do we build that culture of trust? Yeah. So, and we can get into how to do that in terms of building accountability and stuff. But yeah, I think the conversation is really about, like, there's a lot of shitty management out there, and culture falls apart and lives and dies with leadership, right? Everything rises and falls with it. And culture, I think, lives and dies with that middle management. So you've got all those middle managers that have all those team members. And, how do the team members find any type of resolution when they have management that suck? Yeah. You'd have to go to HR. Yeah. That's all.
That's the struggle. And I think, from the employee standpoint, for those who are out there, is to say, I'm HR or I'm an employee that do have a concern where if I can't go to HR on a confidentiality conversation of, my uncertainties with my leadership, then who do I turn to? Because then that creates tension, right? If I can't trust HR to have a conversation about, not necessarily, don't necessarily have to trash my leadership, because HR won't do that. They'll stay professional and guard, no matter how they may feel about the leader.
Yeah,
that leader could be crap, and that HR person is going to be staying in the role. Now, what they say after hours, what I really wanted to say, we'll have to bring in an HR leader to translate that, and maybe that'd be a future episode. We have somebody in, and I'll be the employee, you be the leader, and then we have a translator that is in HR, what they really meant, and that can be done cocktail hour networking event. Anybody have an event coming up, you want to do a cocktail hour live podcast with Ryan and I, we're there. Sign us up, and maybe we can see if Sherman get us some credits or something for that podcast episode. But in all seriousness, getting back to the point, employees that cannot go to leadership, whether it's HR or just leadership in general, to have that, how do I communicate? How do you feel the way I feel? When I think about this question, what do you think about my manager? What I feel is, this is how I feel.
Yeah.
Am I wrong about how I feel? And if I am right, how do I then have that conversation?
Yeah.
Right. Now, you don't have to say I'm right, because then on the HR side, I put my HR hat on, and I will say, obviously, I won't say, hey, you're right about that manager.
Yeah.
I'll say, hey, you're right, and okay to have those feelings and those thoughts about your manager.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you whether your feelings matter to me, right? What you perceive from your perspective is something that you're seeing.
Yeah.
What my job as an HR leader then becomes is acknowledging your issue, your concerns, and give you a peaceful way on how to have that conversation.
Enable you and empower
and say, hey, if you're feeling this way, this is what I would do. Yeah. And what I've seen in most HR moments, going back to retail days, is, hey, have that conversation with your leader. If you feel that it's not going the right way, because that leader could be a manager that doesn't have leadership development, they don't have soft skills, they don't know how to deal with confrontation. It could be that situation, right?
Yeah.
And so if that conversation goes back, and I have this leader, and I go back to HR and say, hey, I've talked, and it seems like everything's going downhill since. Like, the next step then is HR brings that person in with you, right? It's kind of that accountability sense.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, how can we deal with this? So then that gets involved, and that becomes where you see the best of both worlds are the torn, right, of HR leaders, where they're having to lead a manager, but also connect that employee.
Yeah.
So there's no disconnect. So it's a tricky balance. I'll be interested as well, if there's anybody in the chat, if you want to maybe confidentially, you can just PM me. I think that's a lot
or you can, if you have some perspective on this too, like
we'd love to hear back.
Yeah. We'd love to hear, throughout this whole conversation. If you want to throw it in chat, let us know. We're
I'm getting more PMs than I am actually chat work right now, which is understandable. A lot of people don't want to say, especially on social media, because once it's out there, social media is out there.
Say
so
what?
with how they may feel,
Yeah.
Some people are looking at their, conversations or their chats.
Is that what HR is doing? That's a question I have.
I will say,
no, the question I have for HR is, are you going on other people's social media to see what's going on in their life?
Never.
Hey,
I mean, we had FAMA on back in December.
Facebook,
and they do a lot of background check and consistent social media scans to make sure that there's no threats things. So that does have, some companies have it.
It's important.
I honestly, when we were doing our 18 retail stores, social media did matter. Their perception that they put out, because they represent us. What they do after hours and their personal beliefs and all those things, sure. But we wanted to have a certain distinct standard and expectation of what we want our employees to be representing. We didn't want them out there talking about anything. So I think there is some of those messages. Number 2.
Yes.
So number 1 was, what do you think about my manager? Employees going to the HR. Second question that employees would like to go to HR about is, why did I get passed over for a promotion?
Yeah. Why did I get passed over for promotion?
Somebody else just came into the job, and we've seen this conversation really, really heat up during COVID.
Yeah.
Right. And we talked about this a little bit, and I'll throw the mic back over to you. But employees who feel like they've been overlooked, maybe want to know, the reason, like what made that person a little bit more valuable to me and I've been here for a while, right? So still they may be worried in a sense about asking HR this question because of directly what does that look like? But having that conversation, and it's very important as we talk about transparency, and the importance of that transparency through pay, transparency through promotion. Like, what is it that's causing that person who's been here a shorter time to be elevated over somebody that's been here for a longer tenure?
Well, I mean, and to this point, there could be a myriad of different reasons why that happened. It could be because that person's friends with the hiring manager. It could be that that they're looking at bringing someone in younger, and you've been working there for 15 years, and that's what that happened a lot during the pandemic, where the power was brought back to the employees, and they were determining, hey, if I'm going to work for you, I want to make this much money. And companies were like, oh shit, like that's more than we've been paying Bill over here. I keep saying Bill. Sorry if your name's Bill, I'm not talking about you. But Bill's been working here for 15 years. He's making this much money, but in order to hire this new talent, right, we're gonna have to hire them in at a higher pay, and they haven't invested any time in the company, and so there's a challenge, I think, within organizations to provide transparency in terms of how the pay structure is set up, and in terms of promotion in general. What does the promotional process look like, right? Like, there are standards in terms of hiring. Like, you need to be able to put the job, if you have standards in the organization, a process where you don't just hire someone, like when you have 10 people in a business, you might meet someone and hire them. They're a waiter at someone else's staff, and you headhunt and you hire them and bring them in. It's no big deal. But as you start to get bigger, you need to post the job out there. And, so there's a different process. You have to be far more intentional with it. And I think, being able to be transparent about that process and how evaluations take place in terms of not just hiring, but also like internal promoting. Like, what does that look like? Is there a standard that is predictable? A lot of times the issue is not that someone got promoted over someone. It's the lack of clarity as to your point, why,
right?
And is there a why, or was it just a bad decision, or a bad process? The best processes don't always garner people's acceptance or their likability, but it will give them a sense of expectation and certainty, so that at least they know how to get there, how to be promoted. When there's not a clear process, it causes a lot of this confusion where people are like, I don't, and then they're quiet quitters. They quit on you because they didn't get promoted, and they realize, hey, I put all this work in. They obviously didn't see it. And you know how it works, man. It's usually the people that get promoted are the ones that are talking the most charismatic, able to toot their own horn. There's a lot of people that are hard ass workers that are really moving the needle for the company, but people don't know it. And I think people can get frustrated because we have to really be clear around how promotion works. There has to be transparency around performance evaluations and how to get there, because when we're talking about development and training, what's the point of that? Just to become a better skilled worker, or is there an upside for me? We always talk about it like people want to know, when it comes to business, like, what's in it for me? So I think about it that way. Yeah,
it's good. So the importance, obviously, is the transparency piece, and making sure there's some transparency. In the process behind promotions.
So there's so I can expect something. I can't always expect to get promoted, but at least I can expect to know what's happening as promotions are going on.
And I even think about it from this standpoint. I think it's important for people to know, in the process, one of the things that I believe in is that sometimes I love to keep good people where they're great. Right. The book, The Energy Bus, having the right people on the bus, but it's even more important in value to make sure they're in the right seat. Right. You don't want somebody that ain't never had a driver's license driving the car that's never driven before, right?
Right.
That'd be equivalent of me giving my 9-year-old the keys to my Tesla.
Yeah.
Right. Or my phone to my Tesla.
Yeah.
To get it started. You got to have the right people on the bus. And I think that transparency also, that is important as well.
Yeah.
And I think that part of it starts through in the recruiting and hiring process, where you say, listen, we want to put the right people in the right seat and value you as such.
Yeah.
Promotion does not always mean higher title for some people.
Yeah.
They just want to be accepted. They want to be appreciated. They want to be valued, but also paid. That's the transparency of the promotion. Sometimes promotion is not a title. And I think a lot of times as leaders in small businesses in a sense where somebody's been with us for 2 or 3 years, we got to give them a new title.
Yeah.
They've been here so long. No, give them a new promotion, right? Whatever that may look like. And I think that comes with relationship. That comes with knowing who's on your team and what they value most. Some people don't value money. They're content as long as they're taken care of. In that sense, what is it that they value most? It could be that flexibility. We can talk about pay, compensation, and benefits.
Yeah.
And I have somebody in mind that we want to have that conversation with here pretty soon. But sometimes they want to be promoted in that way as well. So I think having that transparency and that conversation as a leadership team. Yeah. As much as we talk about, this conversation being HR Unplugged, what it really is, because so much stuff, too much stuff gets thrown in HR. It has something to deal with people, and leadership doesn't want to deal with people. Right. They want to throw it to HR. And so our hearts are with HR. We are HR cheerleaders. We are here. We're holding your hands up, support you. Ryan and I, we love y'all dearly, and you're needed and valued as well. But if a company and organization as a leadership, as the people, can just be transparent in that sense. Yeah. Listen, we want to promote people. And we want to promote what's valued to you.
But what is that?
It could be more paid time off.
Yeah, but how do you define that, right? Yeah. Define it, be clear about it, write it down, make it part of the evaluation and the process and the development plan. Yeah. Don't talk about promotion just in terms of title and position, to your point. That's why we always say, like, stop promoting and start empowering, right? Like equipping. Getting people, because how I can give you a title, and I can give you authority, but what I cannot give you is leadership, because that's something that must be developed in you before it could come out from you, and so that's something that is an internal work, and so management skills and all that's an external work. And it's not that we don't learn things internally through that, but leadership comes from a different place. And I think when we talk about promotion, we need to be thinking about it in terms of an overall scope of how we're elevating everyone collectively, right? Instead of, we've got these moments where we have, we need to promote someone into management. And then we just, like, the way we promote somebody in management is we give them a title and say, now this is your team. Yeah. That's not the way to run a successful business. The way to run a successful business is to have leaders that are equipped to do what the task is at hand. Yeah. And not because they have a title to do so. Right. It's because they have the ability to, So
yeah. One of the questions, and this question that we just asked, number 2, in regards to, getting passed over on a promotion, Ben Eubanks, he said, one of the questions he would have, that's the top question that he's hearing is, how do you decide the pay rate to offer a job? Right. Right. And so, how do you break that down? What does it look like?
Because the pay rate could be more for someone coming into the business. Again, I think the more clarity around that, and the more we're able to write down and say this is how pay is determined. Yeah. Right. And again, if there's transparency around that, then I think there can be a greater level of trust built. And that doesn't mean that we're always going to get that right. Yeah. But I do think that pay should reflect skills, abilities, soft skills, hard skills, the ability to lead, the experience and education in terms of previous development. What does that individual bring to the table that might be different than or more needed for this season within the business. But overall, I think I like the idea as much as possible for there to be some form of like pay banding, where generally if we're in the same form of position and have the same requirements of job and so forth, that we should be making the same amount of money, putting in the same amount of effort and all of that. So if I'm a VP manager and someone else is a VP manager, it should be similar. But I also think, companies do well to be able to say, hey, if you invest in yourself and you develop these skills, that you can grow financially within the business as well. Far trickier when you have thousands of employees, to sort through that. And I think you have to, and that's why I think as you get bigger and bigger, there's less of that uncertainty in terms of across the board, and you have to really get some standards in place. And that's where pay banding and stuff, and do we pay the same people in Chicago that we pay in Indianapolis?
It's true. Number three,
all that good stuff.
Number three, and this will be an interesting conversation because it's, this is a conversation that's beyond HR. This is just life in general. This is I like to say this question could be asked in any ship.
Okay.
Business ship, friendship, relationship, any partnership, right? Any ship that you're on, you always wonder in the back of your mind, number three, can you keep my issue confidential? Right. Employees, they may want to seek advice. Goes back to question one. They may want to seek advice and or support about something that they have on their heart or their mind. And they want to know truly, can I talk about a personal issue? Or even a business issue? It could be a health problem, right? How does it, how does this work with our benefits? How much time am I allotted, right? I have a family matter or a health problem. And I want to know if I go into details, even to the minimum, that this stays where it stays. And so still they may need to find out, if HR or a leader, if they, maybe the relationship with the leader is better. Right. And I just don't want to talk to a lot of people about this, but I'm gonna confide in you. Would you be a voice for me, Ryan? To then go to HR, but can you trust HR?
Right? I think after a while, you kind of do know within an organization whether you can trust HR or any other leader for that matter. These are candid conversations that we want to have with HR leaders, but to your point, this could be any relationship in terms of leadership. And, when we used to be pastors, right, we would have people that would come to us in confidence, or, I'm a coach, certified coach. And part of that is in the beginning. And I think this kind of might be able to bring some clarity to this conversation is, if you're my client, the first thing that we do is we build an alliance. And the reason we build an alliance is within that alliance, we know we can trust each other in that alliance. It doesn't mean I trust you in every aspect of my life as my coach, but when we get together in terms of what that alliance is, what we come to an agreement around, that's almost a contract of sorts. That building of an alliance helps to build trust. It's that those initial conversations that we say, here's what we agree to. When you come to me in confidence and you tell me that this is in confidence, then for me as your leader, this is in confidence. But the alliance is, you need to tell me that. Like, don't just share everything with me and then I don't know what is if I need to have someone else come in to help you in your work. If I need to bring in assistance, or if there's a definite issue, mental health concern, so part of the alliance is, George, if I hear something that is concerning to me, that could be detrimental to you or anyone else, that's a boundary for me,
right,
as your leader. And that means yes, you can trust me, but you can also trust me to find help. What I'm saying? And generally what people don't want to happen is, when we bring issues to HR, that it doesn't get left in those conversations, that it spreads around.
Right.
I
think that's the most important thing.
I know. Yeah.
Whether it's something serious or even something
Yeah.
that's minor.
Yeah.
When somebody wants something done in confidentiality, it stays in that.
But say that though.
Yeah. And it has to be clear. And I think that's a two-way street. For me, what I always did, whether it's coaching and counseling, is I always, when I felt like a conversation was serious, or it was scheduled, right? Sometimes spontaneously somebody will come into your office and it's like, holy, and you get hit with something. Now at the end, I'll say, hey, I want to make sure this, conversation stays where you want it to be. Is this something that you want to keep confidential, or, may I have permission to seek advice from? And I'll say, hey, I want to seek advice from, somebody else. Are you okay with that? And if you're not okay with me having a conversation, would you be okay if I bring you into that, so you know exactly what's being said and how it's being said? And so those things were important to me, and that happened to me. Right. I experienced that, and it was the first time I experienced that. I started questioning everybody that didn't give me that moment, right? Because it's like, man, this person really values confidentiality enough to give me assurance that it's going to stay here. But not only that, they want to seek permission. And so I was like, typically in this matter, I wanted it to stay there, but the fact that they asked the question and was respectful enough to include me, I wanted to be at that table. Hey, and for me, and when it comes to certain things, I don't want to talk. Right. So I was in that room, and just to hear the conversation, my respect for that leader won me over. Like, I supported, I fought, even if it was wrong. It was one of those things where I know you're wrong, but I ain't gonna call you out in front of everybody. But hey, this is kind of what it looked like behind the scenes.
Just that statement built
because
trust.
it built a trust beyond just word. Like, I saw the heart of the person. And I think that's valuable for leaders. And I want to encourage leaders out there. You want to build trust. You want to build that transparency, and you want to build that piece of communication with your employees. Let them see your heart. When we talk about showing that you care, not just in the community and the work, but showing that you care enough about who they are truly. When somebody values, when it's confidential, they're saying, I trust who you are. Right, enough to give you something that is going to stay in the vault. And what it does, beyond I'm gonna work hard for you or with you, it's that if you need something, I'm here. Relationship, where I respect you enough that I want to show up for you in a sense. So that means something, especially when that situation happened for me, where my leader said, hey, I want to make sure it stays here, but I would like to seek some influence and some information. Are you comfortable with that conversation? I think that transparency is so pure when you just let it out, because in the back of people's mind is always who they're going to go to. Right. You may never know that it may be confidential and the confidential to the confidential, right? It may move on. But when you're seeking advice, I would encourage you to be transparent in that conversation enough where it's confidential. If you are going to seek after advice, and some of us need to, because of the matter at hand, I think it's important. It's no different than a life or death situation where you have to say, hey, listen, because of the importance of this conversation, I'm going to have to. Right. Those conversations. And I know a lot of great HR leaders that do have those specific moments. But I think as leadership in general, being transparent when you do need to seek advice creates a trust like never before. Because eventually, if you go out and seek advice, people are going to know, hey, you went and talked to somebody.
Again,
so it's important to be clear.
Again, it gets down to like building trust comes down to being clear. You know what I mean? And I think building that alliance from the beginning, and having statements that are trust building statements, that are indicators to, this is the type of leader this person is. They're trustworthy because I have a sense that they're here for me. Not just the business.
Number 4, we kind of touched on this one already, but it's interesting. Why did my coworker get a raise when they do the same job? It's back to money again. It's different. Some people are like, they get passed over a promotion. This is, hey, we do the same job, but they got more money. And we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, because I think we kind of cross touch on this one. But employees who feel like they're not being paid relatively similar or may want to know, why, John is getting paid more than Sarah, or Sarah is getting paid more than the other. I mean, I said that backwards because we all know that women don't get paid as much as they should in similar situations. So we're going to continue to fight and be a voice of that as well. But that that moment where people are receiving raises or somebody's getting hired in, and we're doing the same job. There's nothing extra, and they're getting paid more. So that worry has been in a sense of, hey, I don't want to ask this question because one, me being too direct could cause some, create some dysfunctions or some tension or conflict at the workplace, and I don't want to feel ungrateful.
Well, I'll be honest, like, the reason that this comes up is because this is happening, right? Like we talked about I heard this quite often.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like, this major thing, but I heard it enough where I thought, okay, people are expecting to get hired in at a higher pay than people that have been there working for the company for some time. So, what are the compensation guidelines within the organization? Again, clarity breeds trust. Where there is not clarity, there is not trust. And so when it comes down to this conversation, it comes down to the T word. We keep saying transparency, transparency. What are we saying? When it's transparent, it's clear.
Right.
It doesn't mean that we give every detail of everything. I think what we're saying is clarity. What we're needing is a Windex on our window so that it's not so, you know what I'm saying? A window does no good when you can't see through it. It's no longer, it's
like wearing glasses. I think about Dexter,
right?
And we both wear glasses. I don't wear mine all the time. I should, but I don't. But I think about when I look at Dexter, and he's like, and he'll look out the top of the top of his glasses to annoy me because it always reminds me of his mom in heaven. And then he does it. Secondly, because he can't see.
Yeah.
It's like, man, if you can't see what's giving you the strength to see clearer, then maybe it's not your eyes.
Yeah.
It's something that's.
Or he needs glasses for the short, but he can't.
Oh, he has one eye, the short, one eye.
Yeah.
So he's like.
Well, that's the whole thing is like, like what we're saying when we say transparency is let's be clear about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
When it comes to compensation and those guidelines, like, I would imagine there was a lot of mistakes made in terms of compensation throughout the pandemic and post-pandemic. And there's been a lot of shuffling of staff and within that, I think employees just want to know that their work is, their contribution in their work is recognized in the same way.
Right.
And pay is number one on that list. You can't, there is a move, I think, to talk about paying people with purpose and giving people a sense of purpose and giving back and doing good and affording volunteerism and all that's good. But that doesn't replace pay. You know what I'm saying? You can't not pay someone the equivalent and say, well, we're giving you a greater sense of purpose.
So it doesn't work that way.
I'll give you a great sense of purpose here in a second if you don't start paying me what I'm worth,
That's right. Number 5. What is HR doing to address issues around diversity and inclusion?
Yeah.
So this is something that's, if you've been following Twitter or X, Elon versus Mark Cuban have been going back and forth about DE&I and what it is, what it's not, why it matters, why it doesn't, what does it really look like. But employees want to know, this question from an employee said, hey, listen, I just want to know what steps the organization is taking to promote DE&I. And because I know others, this person said, hey, I know others who are hesitant to ask because they fear being seen as too political and decisive in a sense of we're trying to promote. So this is coming obviously from a person of color. It's not a Black person, but a person of color, different ethnic. They're saying, hey, listen, there's people that are worried about treatment transparency because there's no clarity on it, but yet our company is saying DEI, they promote it, but how we feel as employees is a disconnect.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So there's a disconnect from, this goes back to core values. We're promoting these things.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Well, I think at the beginning, I think it's interesting that leaders, so-called leaders like Musk and others all of a sudden now have jumped into this conversation now.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, they're concerned about this conversation around equity when it seems as though their equity is at risk. Before this time, they had no interest in this conversation. So to me, Elon Musk is a failed leader in that case, because when it was really necessary to stand up for true equity, all of a sudden now the fight is against it, which is,
right.
I mean, you know, it's just bullshit. Anyway, so that's my
Tell us how you really feel, Pre.
But yeah, I think there's I think there is a necessity for there to be these conversations and open communication around what do employees want. I think a lot of companies make decisions, if it pertains to DEI or any other way, within a vacuum or within a boardroom, wherever you want to say, like within a small space, rather than being able to know what people are wanting and what kind of support they want, you know, and how can I show up for you instead of here's how I'm choosing to show up for you. You know, it's one thing for me to say, George, here's how I want to show up for you, and these are the programs that I've made for you. It's another to say, what do you need from me as a leader? You know, what do you need from me as a Black man that works here? What do you need? And having that open conversation, we can have that conversation because we've built trust,
right?
And we've been clear and it's been transparent, right? And I think having those conversations and being able to be able to talk beyond just making decisions within a boardroom, within a few of the executive team saying we need some DEI stuff and then just pushing programming out.
Yeah.
You know, it's what do the teams within the organization, and how can we all collectively own this together, where it's not just, you know, DEI is put on the one small group of Black and brown employees that we have over there in the corner.
Right.
Because we're seeing that in companies as well, you know? So I don't know. What's your perspective on it?
I think it goes back to, I mean, the root of a lot of things is how do you make me feel? Right. When we talk about culture, it starts there, the feeling that we have. That feeling turns into what I believe, and that belief turns in behavior.
Yeah.
So when I think about even all these questions, and we can ask all these 4 questions that we've asked, and say there's one voice of that, and then there's a DEI voice of that, right? Yeah. It's like data. Ben and I, we go through data all the time at Lighthouse Research, and we look at the overall data. Then we say, all right, what is the difference between how men and women feel about this same question?
Yeah.
What is the difference between how we feel about this when it comes to folks who have kids versus those who don't have kids, right?
Yeah.
And then we can say, hey, what does the Black and brown community say?
Yeah.
Versus the white community.
Yeah.
Right. So we can ask these questions and then take it apart. But overall, when it comes to workplace in general and the issues around DEI, you know, my true feeling is that, and I said this and I mean it, everybody that started a program in 2020 because of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the madness that was going on during the pandemic, right? Everybody that started a program, it reminds me of all the programs I ran in my church, you know, 10 years ago, for 14 years. Whenever we created a program, that program was temporary.
Yeah, it's like stapled on the outside.
It was a stapled outreach. It was a program that was going to be for a moment, but it was never meant to last forever.
Yeah.
When I think of programs within the workplace, I first initially think short term.
Yeah.
It does not necessarily mean that this is something that we are doing.
Yeah.
Right. Versus this is who we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. This is what we do. We care for people.
Yeah. And
right? And it doesn't matter if you're white, Black, brown,
we prioritize
woman, boy, girl,
this. Yeah.
walking, special needs.
Yeah.
Right. We care for people and we prioritize that because it's a lifestyle. It's not some program we put and say, hey, we're going to do this. And we have a small group because now that small group is still separated and alienated from the company.
Right.
But we want to make sure that you feel special in your little closet for your community. Right. And so I get fired up. I can feel it.
Yeah.
And so when I think about DEI, and I'm so passionate about this, because one, it's not a black or brown person's responsibility to talk about D&I. Let's make that clear. If you want to learn from it and learn about it and be a part of the solution, it has to be a lifestyle. Otherwise, it's a lie.
Yeah.
Right? If it's not a lifestyle, it's a lie.
Yeah.
That's the philosophy, and that's just period. That can go for anything. If it's not a lifestyle, it's not who you are.
Yeah.
It's false. It's a program that's not going to last.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be wondering why or what's next.
Yeah.
Now we can look at this and look across the country, and we can search DEI initiatives and things in a lot of organizations.
Yeah.
And we can pull them up right now today. And I ain't seen jack squat on my social media.
Yeah.
It was a thing for 2 years. It was a trend.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is not going to matter again until there's more chaos in the next 2 or 3 years, and the political forces come up, and we want to have this debate in media. When the media drives these things, we get so excited about them, and we got to be a part of that and say we're a solution, so we can win an award about the great place to work or best place to work because we care about our people. The reality is, if you care about your people, it's not because of something that's happened outside of your walls.
Yeah.
It's because of what you want to do inside of your walls that then makes an impact in your community.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
I think, and I think, no, I like that. I like that because the lifestyle of culture matters, because when we have a diverse culture, when we have an equitable culture, when we have an inclusive culture, when we have a culture of belonging, when it's cultural, we're talking about it being more embedded within the DNA of the very essence and being of the organization. Therefore, it becomes the lifestyle because the behavior comes from who we are. And rather than this is why there's the rollback and the pushback. Anybody that you meet trying to roll back DEI, they were never about it. So it's easy to get rid of. It's easy to lessen the interest of it, or to lessen the priority of it now, because it was never a priority. So it's not all of a sudden you've got these leaders. You brought up Elon Musk, that all of a sudden now are have all these smarts about DEI. They've always been an idiot. And it's just coming out. And so that is like when you're talking about lifestyle, I don't necessarily have to have a program when it's who we are. You know what I'm saying? When it's like,
hey, what matters, Ryan, when you look at leadership, and we can, like I said, you can go back and I do this a lot. And you've been there. You've seen me as a keynote speaker at a conference. And I'm the only person who looks like me in the room. Right. And we're talking about leadership and diversity.
Out of hundreds of people.
Out of hundreds and sometimes thousands of people. Right. We can look back and say, all right, you practice and talk about DEI so much. When I go to your website and look at your leadership team, I see 90% men. And then 2 women. And maybe one of those people out of the 12 have some complexion that is not like you. And so, and it's not just about color or race, but we can start there. Then we can start
it's pretty obvious.
That's the obvious, right?
It's easy
how do you care about diversity and inclusion, but your leadership is all men?
It's a culture of sameness.
And so you wonder why your employees don't relate to you and your culture is not great. Right. At some point, we have to have that diversity in all areas. And it's not necessarily a race thing. It's a, how can you relate to me? If you have somebody with special needs, how can somebody be able to relate to a person and be able to care for them, and they feel confident enough to take some of their concerns, right? Some of their disabilities, some of their short issues that they may have, or concerns that they may have, and say, hey, I know this leader is going to take what I need to say or share. And it matters. Do they understand where I'm coming from? Can somebody relate to my concerns?
If they
growing up with, I was on Ritalin as a kid. I mean, we both, we've seen, ADD and all these different things. And even dealing with autism, we have an employee on our team that we both love.
That's great.
And we have a good relationship with. And I love, what I love about our company is that there are some things there that connects. To our people. Not saying that we were perfect in this building. I know we talk a lot and we praise our team a lot, but we're not perfect, but
it's relatable.
It's relatable. And we care. That's a promise.
You can't be great if they can't relate. Yeah. It's good stuff, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we want to encourage, and as we're talking about this and we're in it with a little passion, I do want to encourage everybody out there to continue to listen to us. We appreciate it again as we begin to wrap up. Send us in questions. I think the more over the next couple of weeks and months, we got a lot of feedback coming in, and we want to continue that conversation. So if you have a topic or you're interested in being a guest, if you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, we have Culture Good that powers, but we are in the business of sponsorship. If you're looking to sponsor, be a part of that as well. You can find more information on Culture Good. Get a discovery call with myself or Ryan. We'd love to connect with you on that. But we're excited about what's coming up. I do want to shout out our good friends and myself, Ben Eubanks, Wednesday. For those who are tuning in, Wednesday, April 3rd, and you can find this on LinkedIn and YouTube as well. But April 3rd, Wednesday, we're going to be talking about 1,000. We asked over 1,000 candidates and what they had to say about the hiring process. So we're going to talk about transparency, recruiting, how does candidates...
So they just need to reach out to you on your LinkedIn?
You can follow us on LinkedIn, register, LHRA.io, and you can find more information about that as well. It's going to be exciting Wednesday.
That's awesome. That's April 3rd.
April 3rd.
All right. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. So check us out. Don't forget about the Culture Good Awards. Go on culturegood.com. Apply for that if you'd like to. And as always, thank you for joining us. And we'll see you back here next week on
Champion Your Culture.
Peace. Thank you for tuning in to Champion Your Culture. We hope today's episode has sparked new ideas and inspiration for your journey in leadership and cultural development.
Building a culture good is a collective effort. If you found value in conversations today, please subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on your favorite platform and share this episode with your friends and colleagues.
Your support helps us reach more people and spread the message of impactful leadership and positive cultural change. Don't forget to visit cultureofgood.com to explore how you can become a certified culture champion.
Every week, we're here to bring you insights and strategies that matter. So join us again for more empowering discussions. Let's continue to champion a culture of purpose and passion together.
Until next time, keep leading with heart and let's make a positive difference in the world. And we'll see you next week on Champion Your Culture.